The classroom hummed with the low, thrumming energy of 100 different life forms, a symphony of serene confidence. This was the Aethelgard Stellar Academy, the crucible where the future leaders of the galactic consortium were forged. Here, the children of 1,000 worlds, each a marvel of stability and evolutionary perfection, gathered to learn the arts of strategy, diplomacy, and command. The air itself, meticulously calibrated for every species present, was a testament to the consortium's power, an effortless denial of the chaos of the void outside. Presiding over the comparative xenosociology seminar was Proctor Xyler, a being whose form shimmered, a column of crystalline light and captured nebulae. His age was measured in galactic rotations, and his voice was not heard but felt, a resonant chime that vibrated in the bones and carapaces of his students. Today, his voice chimed, a sound of serene authority, we engage in a foundational exercise. Understanding our allies is as critical as understanding our enemies. Each of you represents a pinnacle of your biosphere. You are the inheritors of worlds that have achieved equilibrium. You will, one by one, provide a brief, unfiltered description of your homeworld's core environmental principles, the pressures that sculpted your people into the exemplars you are today. Let us begin with Cadet G. Throck. A massive insectoid being rose, his obsidian carapace gleaming under the simulated starlight of the lecture hall. He was a Cathar from a world of majestic, predictable volcanoes and honorable titanic predators. He spoke with pride of his planet's geothermal stability, the ritual combat against great lava worms, a world where strength was tested against monumental but understandable forces. His world was harsh, but it was fair. It was a world of rock and fire, but it played by the rules. The class listened, nodding in appreciation of such a raw yet orderly crucible. Next came Elara, a slender, empathic being whose skin rippled with soft, bioluminescent colors reflecting her tranquil thoughts. She described Lyra Prime, a world without predation, a global garden where flora and fauna existed in a symbiotic dance of such profound harmony that the concept of violence was a purely abstract academic horror. Her people had evolved to communicate through shared emotion, their strength found in absolute unity and the absence of conflict. The class felt a wave of peace wash over them, a testament to the truth of her words. A Cygnian strategist followed, an avian creature with feathers of spun silver, who described a gas giant moon of perfect atmospheric stratification and clockwork-like weather patterns. His people had mastered logic and predictive modeling because their world was the ultimate predictable system. Chaos was a mathematical impossibility on his world, and thus an evolutionary flaw. One by one, they spoke. Cadets from worlds of perfectly engineered aquatic ecosystems, from planets locked in serene twilight, from biomes where evolution had been guided by their ancestors into a state of flawless, static perfection. Each description was a monument to order, to stability, to the taming of nature. And then Proctor Xyler's gaze, a pinpoint of ancient starlight, fell upon the smallest, softest-looking cadet in the room. She was bipedal, with no natural armor, no visible claws, and an unnervingly wide range of micro-expressions flickering across her face. She was human cadet Elara Vance, the first of her kind ever admitted to the Academy. Her homeworld, a little-known Class M planet in the unfashionable Sol system, was listed in the registry as Earth, with a hazard rating that was still perplexingly under review. Most assumed it was a clerical error. "Cadet Vance," Proctor Xyler chimed. "Your turn, describe your homeworld." A curious silence fell. Humanity was a newcomer, an unknown quantity. They were seen as fragile, emotionally volatile, and technologically adolescent. Underdogs. A charity case, some whispered, admitted to the consortium out of pity. Elara stood, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. A biological response none of the others in the room could truly comprehend. She took a deep breath of the perfectly recycled air, a sterile imitation of the real thing, and began. "My homeworld is called Earth," she said, her voice quiet but clear. "It's a terrestrial world with a nickel iron core which generates a significant magnetic field. This is necessary." The Cygnian strategist tilted its head. "Necessary for what, Cadet? All stable worlds have magnetospheres to deflect stellar radiation." "To deflect most of it, yes," Elara agreed. "But ours is particularly violent. Our star is prone to coronal mass ejections. Without a strong, dynamic field, our atmosphere would be stripped away. It also shifts. The poles wander and on geological timescales flip entirely." A low murmur rippled through the class. A shifting magnetic field? An unstable star? That sounded less like a cradle of life and more like a defective celestial engine. "Tell us of your atmosphere," Proctor Zyler prompted, his light form shimmering with what might have been curiosity. "It's approximately 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen with trace elements," she said, reciting the basic data. "But its stability is situational." She paused, searching for the right words. "The planet is tilted on its axis, 23.4 degrees. This tilt creates seasons, vast planetary-scale swings in temperature and weather. A region that is temperate and pleasant for a portion of our orbit can become lethally cold, buried under meters of frozen, crystallized water. Another part of the planet can become so hot that the air itself is dangerous to breathe." The Cygnian, whose world had no axial tilt and thus no seasons, began to tap a talon against his console, his logical mind struggling to model the sheer inefficiency of such a system. Why would life evolve in a place that actively tried to freeze and boil it on a cyclical basis? "And the water you mentioned," Elara continued, her voice gaining a strange, distant quality as if she were channeling the memory of her entire species. "We call it weather. The atmospheric moisture doesn't just condense and fall in gentle, predictable rains. It can become organized. It gathers energy from our warm oceans and spins into colossal vortices of wind and water, hundreds of kilometers wide. We call them hurricanes or typhoons. They are powerful enough to shatter our cities and scour landscapes to the bedrock. Water can fall so fast it creates flash floods, walls of water that move faster than a creature can run. Or it can simply stop falling. For years, creating droughts that turn fertile land into desert. The Vexian, an amphibious being from a world where every current and rainfall was managed by ancient biomachines, felt a tremor of disgust. Uncontrolled water, water as a weapon of the planet itself. It was obscene. It was a failure of design. Elara's gaze was fixed on the far wall now, seeing not the sterile metal but green forests and blue oceans. The ground itself is not solid, not really. The entire surface of our world is fractured into massive plates that float on a sea of molten rock. And they move. When they grind against each other, the planet shudders. We call them earthquakes. They can flatten a city in seconds. Sometimes the molten rock below finds a way to the surface. We call these volcanoes. They don't just spew lava like the honorable vents on Cathar. They can explode with the force of thousands of nuclear weapons, blanketing entire continents in ash, blocking out the sun, and changing the climate of the entire planet for decades. Cadet Gthrock, the Cathar warrior, shifted his bulk uncomfortably. The volcanoes of his world were a source of heat and metal, their eruptions as predictable as the rising of their twin suns. This was different. This was the ground itself, the very concept of stability, turning into a random, malevolent force. The planet was not a foundation, it was a trap. "So you are shaped by geological and meteorological chaos," Proctor Zyler summarized, his tone even. "An interesting pressure, but all life must contend with its environment. Tell us of your biosphere, Cadet, the flora." This was where Elara's expression tightened. This was the part they truly wouldn't understand. "The plants on my world are at war," she said softly. "With everything. They fight each other for sunlight, for water, for nutrients. They develop toxins to kill their rivals, thorns and spines to wound any animal that tries to eat them. Some produce pollen so fine it fills the air, and for many of our species, including my own, inhaling it triggers a violent reaction from our own immune systems. We call them allergies. It's a state where your own body's defenses try to kill you because of microscopic grains released by a flower." The Lyran empath, whose world's plants communicated through pheromonal harmony, felt a pang of psychic dissonance. Plants that weaponized the very air, an immune system that turned on its host. It was a concept of such profound biological wrongness that she had to steady herself, her skin flickering a sickly gray. "And there are plants," Elara continued, her voice dropping lower, "that have evolved to be predators. They create sweet nectars to lure in small animals, then trap them and slowly digest them. Alive." A collective gasp went through the room. The idea was monstrous. "Let us move to the fauna, Cadet Vance," the proctor interjected, sensing the rising distress. "Surely the animal life has achieved some form of equilibrium." Elara gave a small, sad smile that did not reach her eyes. "Equilibrium on Earth is just the pause between wars. You have to understand, for most of our evolutionary history, we weren't the predators. We were the prey. But the thing that truly defines Earth's fauna isn't the scale of the predators, it's the scale of the horror." She took a breath. "We can start small, microscopic. Our world is saturated with organisms you cannot see. We call them bacteria and viruses. They are not simply life forms, they are invaders. They hijack our own cells, turning them into factories to produce more of themselves until the cell bursts and dies. They can poison our blood, shut down our organs, liquefy our tissues. There are even misfolded proteins, prions, that can get into your brain and slowly, over years, turn it into a sponge. There is no cure. There is no defense. It is a death sentence written in a single molecule." The Lyran empath whimpered, her hands flying to her temples. She could almost feel it, the concept of cellular betrayal, a rebellion at the most fundamental level of being. It was a psychic scream of body horror that she was not equipped to process. "Then there are the insects," Elara said, her gaze sweeping over the Cathar warrior. "On your world, Cadet Geethrock, I'm sure your insects are creatures of honor and recognizable strength. Ours have perfected cruelty. We have wasps that paralyze a host, a living creature, and lay their eggs inside its body. The larvae then hatch and eat the host from the inside out, carefully avoiding the vital organs to keep it alive for as long as possible. We have ants that are swarming armies, capable of stripping a creature to the bone in minutes. Spiders with venom that necrotizes flesh, turning it black and rotten while you are still alive. Centipedes with dozens of legs, each one capable of delivering a dose of agony. Geethrock, the proud insectoid warrior, actually recoiled. His species battled giant, honorable beasts. The thought of such tiny, devious, dishonorable assassination was utterly repugnant. This wasn't combat. It was terror made manifest in a million chitinous forms. "And the water," Elara's voice was barely a whisper now. "The oceans, 95% of it is unexplored. The pressure is so great it would crush this vessel. There is no light. The creatures there, they are things of nightmare. Anglerfish with crystalline teeth and a parasitic male that fuses to the female's body until he is nothing more than a sack of reproductive organs. Colossal squid with eyes the size of dinner plates and hooks on their tentacles. Creatures that are just mouths, waiting in the dark. She looked around the room. The confidence had evaporated. The calm, serene hum was gone, replaced by a tense, horrified silence. The cadets weren't just listening to a description. They were being taken on a tour of a planetary-scale torture chamber. "And then," she said, her voice turning grim, "there are the larger things, the ones we evolved alongside, crocodilians, ancient reptiles that have not changed in millions of years. They are masters of the ambush. They can wait perfectly still for hours, then drag you under the water to drown you and spin your body to tear off limbs. There are the great cats, silent stalkers with night vision who hunt us for food. The bears, omnivores with the strength to crush a skull with a single swipe. The wolves, pack hunters who coordinate and strategize to exhaust and isolate their prey, us." She finally met the eyes of her classmates. "You must understand, we did not evolve on a world that nurtured us. We evolved on a world that was actively, relentlessly, and creatively trying to kill us every second of every day. The air could poison us, the water could drown or smash us, the ground could swallow us, the plants could poison us, and every single animal, from the one we couldn't see to the one that towered over us, was a potential death sentence. We had no natural armor. We had no venom, we were not the fastest or the strongest. Our only weapon was our minds. We had to outthink the poison, outplan the hunt, outbuild the storm." She took a final, shuddering breath. But even that wasn't the defining pressure. The most dangerous, most brutal, most unpredictable predator that humanity has ever faced was other humans. And that's when it happened. The Lyran empath, who had been trembling violently, suddenly went rigid. Her skin flashed a blinding, frantic white, and her eyes rolled back into her head. She collapsed onto the floor in a dead faint, her mind utterly shattered by the psychic echo of 1,000,000,000 years of unfiltered, primal terror and suffering she had just witnessed through Elara's description. Her collapse was the breaking point. A few seats away, the Cygnian strategist began to hyperventilate, its silver feathers puffing out in distress as its logic-based mind suffered a catastrophic systems failure, unable to compute a universe where life could even exist, let alone achieve sentience, in such a maelstrom of pure, random chaos. It keeled over, its console flashing with biological warning signals. Another cadet, a silicon-based life form from a world of crystalline peace, simply shattered, its resonant frequency disrupted by the sheer violence of the concepts being described. Soon it was a cascade. Half the class was unconscious, sprawled on the floor. The other half were in various states of shock, staring at Elara Vance not as a fragile newcomer, but as if she were the sole survivor of a cosmic horror, a creature forged in a hell they could not have imagined in their worst nightmares. Proctor Zyler finally raised a shimmering appendage. "That is enough, Cadet Vance." The classroom was a scene of chaos. Medical drones were already descending, attending to the fainted students. Elara stood there, trembling, horrified by what she'd done. She thought she was just answering a question. Proctor Zyler's voice filled the sudden silence, no longer a serene chime, but a deep, resonant thunder that commanded attention. He floated to the center of the room, his form pulsing with an intense, analytical light. "Look around you," he commanded the cadets still conscious. "Look at your comrades, look at yourselves. You are the finest products of stable, predictable, sane worlds. Your strength is born of order, your resilience from harmony, your intelligence from logic." His gaze fell upon Elara, who looked small and shaken, yet was still standing. You have just heard a summary of a Class 7 death world. No, not a summary. An introduction. Cadet Vance had not yet begun to describe her planet's ice ages, the supervolcanoes that triggered mass extinctions, the asteroids that boiled the oceans, or the endless, brutal history of her own species. Warfare, genocide, and self-inflicted plagues. He let that sink in. The remaining students stared, their minds reeling. "You see a fragile biped," Proctor Zyler continued, his voice resonating with a terrible clarity. "I see a creature whose ancestors survived all of that. You hear of an unstable planet. I hear of the perfect forge for the single most valuable trait in the galaxy: adaptability. Humans are not strong because they have carapaces or venom. They are strong because their bodies can tolerate a staggering range of temperatures, atmospheres, and gravities. They can eat almost any organic matter and not die. Their immune systems are not the delicate, balanced networks of your worlds. They are a rabid, paranoid, full-time military garrison, waging a constant, microscopic world war from the moment of birth. And they win." He drifted closer to Elara. "You see chaos. I see the catalyst for the most terrifyingly effective problem-solving intellect I have ever encountered. A Cathar solves a problem by applying overwhelming force. A Signian solves a problem by calculating its predictable outcome. A human looks at a problem that has no solution, a situation of pure, random, malevolent chaos, and they innovate. They create a solution where none existed. They build tools to tame the lightning. They craft medicines to defeat the invisible plagues. They look at the sky, a domain that tried to kill them, and they build ships to conquer it. They are not the product of a garden. They are the weeds that grew in the cracks of a crumbling abyss, the ones that refused to die." He turned back to the shocked remnants of his class. "For weeks, you have looked at Cadet Vance with pity, with arrogance. You saw her species as weak, emotional, and primitive. You have made the single most dangerous, most fatal assumption an entity can make in this galaxy. You underestimated humanity. You mistook their lack of natural weapons for defenselessness. You mistook their emotional range for instability. You were wrong. Their emotions are not a weakness," the proctor's voice boomed. "They are a battle-honed survival tool. Their fear keeps them alive. Their anger fuels their defiance. Their hope, born in the darkest of cradles, allows them to fight on when any logical species would surrender. They can be the most compassionate and empathetic beings in the galaxy because they understand suffering in their very bones. And they can be the most ruthless conquerors because they have had to survive their own homeworld and each other. Let this be your most important lesson at this academy," he concluded, his light softening slightly. "Do not ever, under any circumstances, judge a species by the peace of their homeworld. The deadliest predators, the most resilient survivors, the most brilliant strategists are not born in paradise. They are forged in hell. And humanity, they carry their hell inside them. It is the spark within. It is the source of their weakness, and it is the secret to their terrifying strength." The medical drones were lifting the unconscious cadets onto floating gurneys. The room was a wreck. But for the students who remained, the universe had been irrevocably altered. They no longer saw a small, soft human standing before them. They saw a warning. An avatar of a force they could not comprehend. A living testament to the brutal truth that the most dangerous thing in the universe is a creature that has absolutely nothing left to lose, because it was born with nothing but a world that wanted it dead. And this is the truth that echoes from that lecture hall and lands right here, right now, with you. You are a descendant of that legacy. Every time you feel overwhelmed by the chaos of your life, every time the world feels unstable and unfair, every time you feel small and unequipped for the fight, remember Elara Vance. Remember Earth. The anxieties you feel, the stress that tightens your chest, the fear of the unknown, that is not a malfunction. That is the ancient echo of an ancestor scanning the horizon for predators. That is the heritage of a survivor. The volatile emotions you've been told to suppress are not a weakness. They are the fuel that drove your species to dominate a planet that tried to erase it. The world told your ancestors they were too weak, too slow, too fragile, so they became smarter. They became tool users, they became planners, they became relentless. Every challenge you face in your life is not an obstacle designed to make you fail. It is the modern-day equivalent of the earthquake, the hurricane, the plague. It is the universe handing you the same evolutionary pressure that forged your entire species into what it is. It is an opportunity to adapt, to innovate, and to overcome. Stop seeing your struggles as a sign of your weakness. They are the forge, the brutal honesty of your situation, the harsh realities you must confront. That is your home turf. You are not a creature of paradise. You were built for the storm. The chaos in your finances, your relationships, your career, that is just another predator to be outthought. The instability is just another earthquake to be survived and built upon. Embrace it. Embrace that spark within, the one forged in fire and ice, in plague and predation. Stop wishing for an easier life and start becoming a stronger person. Your resilience is not something you have to learn. It is something you have to remember. It is written into your DNA. The capacity for impossible survival, for defiant creation in the face of annihilation, is your birthright. Look at the challenges before you today. See them for what they are, the proving ground, the catalyst, the next chapter in the story of a species that looked at hell and called it home. Now go out there and act like it.